Hello, subscribers. Yep, I'm finally back. I was on summer break, so I didn't, basically wasn't around to make tutorials. Today I'm going to be covering displacements. Displacements can drastically make your level look drastically more drastic. No, they can make your level look quite a bit more realistic by adding hills. Instead of, basically it gets rid of the blockiness that a lot of novice mappers have problem with. So I'm going to start by making like kind of like a hill, perhaps in this corner or something. Basically, I'm going to use this tool right here, the texture toggle or whatever. I'm going to left click on it, and it brings up this window right here. I'm going to hit displacement. I'm going to go to create. I'm going to set it as high as it can go, 4. Then you notice you have this kind of like a grid that was kind of drawn over the brush I selected. This is kind of like all these little axis points that you can raise and lower your the ground by. Oh, wait, I'm just gonna stretch this out so I can see, so you can see it better. Anyways, you're gonna go to Paint Geometry, and then these different checkboxes here. I'll describe them to you as I go along. The raise and lower, which is somewhat obvious. You're going to have this little sphere that you can see here, and you can only move it to the little axis points, the little intersections. Basically, you can change the radius of that sphere, so you can make it bigger. You can also change the distance that you click, and it goes up. See, that's going up by 5 units at a time. You can change it to whatever you want. You can change it to like 50, 60. Of course, it's kind of messy, so I'm going to undo that. I'm going to make that back to like 2 or 3 or something. 8. You can also change, if this isn't satisfactory to you, you can also change the axis which you move it. There's the x-axis, which basically, if you left-click here on one axis, you'll slide it over that way. And if you want, you can also change like the y-axis, go that way. If you have the need to go the opposite direction, like let me go back to normal face. Instead of making hills, you can also make holes by right-clicking, and it'll sink the terrain. So like, yeah, and yeah, basically, this is as small of a grid as I can make for the size of the brush. This brush that I'm painting on right here is 1024 by 1024, and this is as small as it gets. So if you wanted to make your terrain a little bit more detailed, what you can do, you can kind of cheat and make maybe like a couple blocks of 512 by 512, or I recommend that you use squared numbers like that, but you can do whatever number you want. As you can see, this is kind of angular. It doesn't look very natural. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to choose smooth. I'm going to make the radius a little bit bigger. Basically, then you can start clicking on your axis point, see, and it kind of smooths it out, kind of blends it a little better. See, and you get a pretty good natural looking, a little slope right there. There's also this thing called raise 2, and let's say that this flat surface starts at 0. You can raise 2 however high you want it. Like I'm gonna go to raise 2. Let's put 1028, which is the height, I believe, of this building right here I made. See, and it raises everything within that sphere 128, which is the distance I inputted. And see, now it's equal height with that building. That's also, it's useful for several different applications, but and let me see what else I can show you about displacements. That's pretty much the basics to displacements. Oh, there's also something called noise, which it can be useful in some places. Let me go to destroy. Destroy will get rid of everything. I'm gonna go to create again, just to make it, start it off as the way it was originally. I'm gonna go to noise. It's pretty useful. Basically creates random, bumps in the ground, the terrain. I'm just gonna set the minimum, like it's gonna move something by 2, and then maximum by, let's just do 4. See, and it kind of created kind of like a bumpy surface naturally, so you don't have to go ahead and make bumpy terrain by yourself. Also, one good thing to note, I'm going to do, wait, hold on a second. Basically, if you plan on displacing like a block like this, make sure to highlight all the sides at once by control clicking and selecting all of them. I'm not going to select the bottom side because I don't need the bottom side to be a displacement. Anyways, so as before, I go to displacement and then create, boosh, and you got this grid on here. And as before, everything within this sphere is going to be moved up or down. If I can click on it, there you go. See, you can kind of create, bumps like that. See, it's kind of interesting. But let's say eventually your lines and stuff don't. Let me just create some noise to show you what I'm going to be talking about. Hit noise. Let's put this by 40 or something. Now, if you notice, the edges of each face are not touching anymore when I created that noise. And if you ever run into a similar situation like that, when you have multiple like brushes, that intercept and they don't line up correctly, you can hit skew or whatever. I'm really dumb. You hit that and it'll merge all the touching faces to where they were. See, now you have this really ugly looking block, but I just wanted to show you that just as an example because it does come in handy as opposed to trying to match up, the faces by yourself, because that could take forever and is pretty much impossible. That's more or less everything that a beginner would need to know about displacements. I'll try to have more videos in the future. As I said before, I was on summer vacation, so I wasn't able to upload anything, or I didn't really have the time to make any videos. But yeah, if you'd want to put some comments in this video to what topics I should cover next, feel free to, because I'm more or less out of ideas to what to cover in my tutorials. What else do I have to say? Yeah, I think next time I might cover the basics of doing triggers. Triggers are very, very useful for setting up different events in your map. Until next time, I'm bad at chaos. So long.